What would you think if I told you that most of what you call strength is only armor, and that armor, over time, becomes the prison you mistake for yourself? Seneca understood this. He lived in a Rome teeming with excess, betrayal, and the quiet violence of ambition. He watched men dress their wounds in gold and women bury their despair in marble halls, while beneath the surface, the same storms raged: fear of loss, hunger for approval, the terror of being unseen. It is here that Stoicism, in its truest form, does not arrive to strip you of feeling, but to return you to the unshaken center that no feeling can control. Clarity is not the absence of emotion. It is the discipline to see emotion without drowning in it. That is where the modern heart misunderstands the ancient mind. The Stoic does not repress grief. He walks with it until it exhausts itself. She does not deny anger. She studies its roots until it has no soil left in which to grow. The discipline is not in turning away, but in turning toward, with eyes that do not flinch. And yet, you, yes, you, have been taught to recoil from pain as though it were poison. You measure the worth of your day by how comfortable it was, by how rarely the shadow entered the room. But the shadow is part of you. Jung knew this well. The repressed will return, cloaked in projection, whispered through resentment, disguised in the very people you swear are your enemies. The Stoics knew it too. Though they gave it other names, they would tell you. The obstacle is the teacher. The wound is the opening. The moment you least wanted is the one you most needed. There is a quiet danger in the language of self-love, as it is often spoken today. Without the weight of truth, it can become the softest form of self-deception, a way to stand still while calling it healing. Seneca's kind of love for the self was not indulgence, it was confrontation. To see the ways you have betrayed yourself. To admit the compromises you made, not from strategy, but from fear. To face the unbearable reality that much of what you have called fate was your own choice, dressed in denial. The modern mind resists this because it feels like cruelty. The ancient mind embraced it because it was the only path to freedom. To know yourself, truly, is not to crown every desire as sacred. It is to expose the parts of you that crave the wrong kind of throne. That is the work, the stripping away, the unmasking, the relentless asking of the question, does this serve my soul or only my ego? And the ego, it is a cunning actor. Jung would say it lives in fear of annihilation. Seneca would say it mistakes survival for virtue. It feeds on praise, yet fears the truth beneath silence. It thrives when you perform for an audience, but withers when you act for no one's eyes, but your own. Here, the Stoic practice is almost surgical. Remove every illusion that your worth rests in the hands of others. Let their applause come or vanish. It changes nothing. Perhaps you resist this. Perhaps you think detachment means you will no longer care, that your days will turn colorless. But detachment is not a graying of life. It is the moment colors return in their true form, unwarped by your desperation to own them. You will still feel joy, but it will not own you. You will still feel grief, but it will not break you. You will be able to hold the flower without crushing it, to love the person without enslaving them. The world will still tempt you. The world will still whisper that safety lies in control, that happiness lies in winning, that worth lies in being chosen. But clarity, Stoic clarity, answers differently. Safety is an illusion. Winning is a fleeting crown. And your worth is the one thing that was never up for debate. Seneca once wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Modern psychology agrees. Most of your torment is a rehearsal, a shadow play in the mind. You relive arguments, anticipate betrayals, replay moments of shame, and in doing so, you wound yourself more deeply than the world ever could. The Stoics' clarity is to see the mind as both the architect and the arsonist, and then to choose, with unwavering discipline, to build instead of burn. This is not coldness. This is not the absence of heart. It is the heart, restored to its rightful power, no longer the hostage of every passing wave. And when you learn to stand there, in the stillness that neither rejects nor clings, you will see why the ancients called this freedom. Freedom, in the Stoic sense, is not granted by the turning of fortune's wheel. It is born when the wheel no longer decides your peace. The modern world confuses liberty with permission, the permission to consume, to indulge, to express, without restraint. But Seneca's liberty is different. It is the quiet sovereignty of one who has mastered the kingdom within, so that no external empire can conquer it. Yet to master that kingdom, you must first walk through its darkest corridors. Jung spoke of shadow work as a descent, a deliberate confrontation with the disowned self. The Stoics would agree, though their descent was into the inner citadel, into the part of the soul untouched by chaos. Both journeys demand the same courage, to meet the parts of you that frighten you most without the armor of distraction or the weapon of blame. This is where many falter. The moment they feel discomfort, they reach for escape. A glowing screen, an intoxicating body, a handful of words to justify the retreat. They tell themselves they are preserving peace, when in truth, they are abandoning the battle before it begins. But the Stoic knows, the battle is never with the world. It is always with the self that flinches at reality. Consider how often your suffering is amplified, not by what has happened, but by the meaning you assign to it. Someone leaves, and you decide you are unworthy. You fail, and you decide you are doomed. You are criticized, and you decide you are small. This is the ego's great error, to turn every event into a verdict on your value. Seneca's clarity was in separating the event from the judgment, the wound from the story about the wound. He would have told you, the universe is indifferent, but that is not cruelty. It is mercy. It means that the storms are not personal, that life is not plotting against you. In that truth lies the seed of immense power, for if the world does not conspire to hurt you, then you are free to stop conspiring against yourself. And yet, power frightens people. To admit you are free is to admit you have choice, and to admit you have choice is to see all the ways you have chosen poorly. Jung called this the moment of individuation, the shift from living as a fragment of the collective to living as an integrated self. The Stoics called it living according to nature, aligning one's will with the order of the cosmos, rather than the chaos of desire. Both require the death of an identity built on reaction. This death is not gentle. It will strip you of the pleasure of pitying yourself. It will remove the comfort of blaming the unfairness of the world. It will demand that you face the bitter truth. Most of your chains are of your own forging. But it will also give you something far greater, the keys to remove them. When the self is no longer obsessed with defending its image, clarity becomes possible. You begin to see that people's cruelty often comes from their own unhealed wounds, that their betrayal says more about their hunger than your worth. You see that love offered from desperation is not love at all, but barter. And most importantly, you see that the only life worth living is the one not built on the shifting approval of others. But beware, the ego is resourceful. Even in the language of self-awareness, it will seek a way to be the hero of every story. It will use Stoic words to avoid feeling, Jungian terms to avoid changing. This is why Seneca's writings are laced with urgency. The call is not merely to think differently, but to live differently. To wake each day prepared to meet fortune or misfortune without surrendering your center. And perhaps you will ask, is it worth it? To live without the intoxication of being endlessly praised, without the adrenaline of constant emotional highs? The answer is this: what you lose in intoxication, you gain in wholeness. No longer fractured between the self you present and the self you hide, you will stand as one. And when you stand as one, the world loses its power to fracture you. There is a silence that follows the integration of the self. A silence that is not emptiness, but fullness. It is the kind of quiet that comes when the constant bargaining in your mind has ceased. No more arguing with the past, no more striking deals with the future. Just the steady awareness of the present moment, neither resisted nor clung to. This is the heart of Stoic clarity, not a life free of storms, but a life unshaken by them. Seneca often wrote that the wise person lives as though fortune has already taken everything away, for in imagining loss, one becomes free from its tyranny. Modern psychology might call this exposure, meeting the feared event in the mind until its power dissolves. But the Stoics' purpose was not merely to numb fear. It was to dissolve the illusion that you ever truly possessed what could be taken from you. Here is where shadow work converges with philosophy. The shadow clings to illusions, the illusion of control, of permanence, of being owed something by the world. It whispers that without these, you will be nothing. But when you strip them away, when you face the void they leave, you discover a strange and unexpected truth. You remain. The self, in its barest form, is enough. Yet this is not a truth the ego surrenders to easily. It prefers the familiar chains of resentment over the disorienting air of freedom. It thrives in drama because drama makes it feel alive. And so, the practice of clarity requires vigilance. Marcus Aurelius wrote of standing guard over the mind as a soldier guards the city gates. Every thought is to be examined. Does it serve peace, or does it feed the fire of turmoil? This vigilance is not paranoia. It is love, the kind of love that refuses to let you live enslaved to your lesser instincts. For love, in the Stoic sense, is not indulgence. It is the patient cultivation of the best within you, even when the worst cries louder. In Jungian terms, it is the integration of the shadow, so that it serves rather than sabotages. In Seneca's words, it is living according to reason and nature, so that one's soul becomes a fortress no enemy can breach. And here lies a paradox. When you no longer fear loss, you are free to love more deeply. You no longer hold people or things with a desperate grip. You hold them with open hands. You can cherish without clinging, because you understand that their value is not in their permanence, but in their presence. This is not coldness. It is the only way to love without fear corrupting it. But the modern mind often recoils from this. It wants guarantees. It wants to believe that love is a contract, that security can be signed and sealed. The Stoics dismantled such illusions without hesitation. Seneca would say, "You have no claim over tomorrow, only the stewardship of today." To demand more is to live in perpetual disappointment, and still, the temptation to control remains. In relationships, in work, in the image you project to the world. Control promises safety, yet delivers only tension, a constant bracing for the moment the illusion cracks. Here again, Stoic clarity is surgical. It asks, is this within my control? If yes, act with integrity. If no, release it completely. Anything less is the slow drip of madness. Yet release is not surrender in the way you think. It is not passivity or apathy. It is the choice to meet reality as it is, to shape what you can without being broken by what you cannot. Modern trauma theory aligns with this. Healing is not the erasure of the past, but the reclamation of agency in the present. The Stoics knew this centuries before. In time, this way of living changes the texture of your being. You no longer walk into a room searching for approval, like a thirsty wanderer seeking water. You enter as one who already carries their well within them. You no longer measure your worth by who stays or who goes, by what you gain or what you lose. You measure it by the unshaken ground beneath your own feet. And in that ground, you find the one thing that cannot be bought, stolen, or bestowed: the calm certainty of who you are, even when the world refuses to applaud. When the certainty of who you are becomes unshakable, the world begins to appear differently. What once felt like chaos now reveals itself as rhythm, not always gentle, but intelligible to the one who has learned to listen. The noise of others' opinions, once a constant storm in your mind, fades to the background hum it always was. You are no longer pulled into every argument, every provocation, every unspoken demand for your energy. You become deliberate, and in that deliberation lies power. Seneca would tell you that most of our misery is voluntary. We open the gates and invite it in. We give strangers authority over our peace. We allow the weak parts of our psyche to dictate our reactions. We let the shadows steer while pretending we are in control. But a disciplined mind, one shaped by Stoic principles, knows that peace is not found, but maintained, and its maintenance is an act of will. This act of will is not brute force. It is refinement. It is the daily training of perception. The way a sculptor chips away stone to reveal form. Each reaction is examined, each impulse held to the light. Is this my true self speaking, or my fear disguised as virtue? Jung spoke of individuation as the uniting of the conscious and unconscious, the making of a whole being. In the Stoic frame, this is the alignment of your reason and your nature. A union that produces not just resilience, but presence. Presence is a rare thing in an age of constant distraction. Most live in the elsewhere, in regrets that cannot be altered, in fantasies that will never arrive. The Stoic lives here, now. Even joy is sharper when fully inhabited, for it is not dulled by the constant reaching for what comes next. Grief, too, becomes cleaner, felt fully, then allowed to pass, unchained to the stories that turn it into endless suffering. But presence requires courage. To be fully here is to face what is here, including the things you would rather not see. The cracks in your relationships, the compromises you have made against your own values, the ways you have bartered your dignity for comfort or approval. The unflinching gaze of Stoicism makes such truths unavoidable. And while they may wound, the wounds they leave are the kind that heal without infection, for they are cleansed by honesty. This honesty is not only for the self. The Stoic mind learns to see others without the haze of projection. You stop making people carry the weight of your unmet needs. You stop expecting them to save you from yourself. You begin to see that much of the harm people cause is unintentional. The blind stumbling of those who have not yet faced their own shadow. And in that seeing, forgiveness becomes less an act of moral superiority and more a recognition of shared human frailty. Yet forgiveness, in this sense, is not the same as allowing harm to continue. The Stoic draws boundaries not from bitterness, but from clarity. You can walk away without hatred. You can say no without rage. You can end a chapter without needing to burn the book. This is the quiet strength that confuses those who equate love with self-sacrifice and anger with self-protection. Still, there will be moments when the old patterns call to you, when the temptation to prove your worth through winning an argument or securing someone's approval feels almost irresistible. These are the moments Seneca would tell you to pause, to look inward, to ask, if I had no audience, would this still matter to me? If the answer is no, you walk away. If yes, you act, but you act without poison in your blood. Over time, this way of living produces a rare kind of authority, not over others, but over yourself. The authority to choose your response, to shape your days with intention, to refuse the seduction of unnecessary suffering. This authority is quiet, but it radiates. People feel it when you speak. They feel it when you remain silent. It is the kind of strength that needs no declaration because it is lived. And perhaps, without realizing it, you become what Seneca, Marcus, and Epictetus all envisioned: a soul untouched by the chaos of fortune, rooted not in the shifting soil of circumstance, but in the bedrock of reason, presence, and truth. There comes a moment, after long practice, when the inner fortress no longer feels like a fortress at all. The walls remain, but they are not built to keep the world out. They are built to keep your essence intact. You realize that the real work of Stoicism was never about withdrawal from life, but about entering it without losing yourself. Seneca lived in the very heart of Rome's turbulence, surrounded by intrigue, envy, and the intoxicating decay of power. Yet in his writings, there is an unshaken stillness, as though he had found a vantage point above the noise. That vantage point is available to you, though the climb to reach it is steep. It begins with the refusal to let every sensation dictate your movement. You learn to observe emotion as a cloud passing overhead, to see its shape, to feel its presence, but not to mistake it for the sky itself. Modern psychology calls this emotional regulation, but the ancients saw it as something deeper: mastery of the self. For without mastery, you are merely a mirror reflecting whatever stands before you. With mastery, you are the sculptor, shaping not the world, for that is beyond you, but your own response to it. And in shaping that, you shape your destiny. But mastery does not erase vulnerability. In fact, it refines it. A Stoic heart is not encased in stone. It is exposed, but resilient. It can be wounded, but not destroyed. It can grieve deeply without being swept away. Jung understood this as the integration of the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine forces, so that compassion and strength coexist without conflict. The Stoics lived this integration without naming it as such, embodying the paradox of being both unyielding and tender. This integration changes the way you relate to others. You no longer love from emptiness, demanding they fill what you have refused to cultivate within yourself. You love from wholeness, so your love is not a chain, but a gift. You no longer need to control the outcome, for your worth does not hang in the balance. The fear that once whispered, "What if they leave?" fades, replaced by a deeper truth. If they go, you will still remain whole. And so, life opens, freed from the exhausting labor of managing appearances and securing attachments. You are able to see others as they are, not as characters in your private drama. You notice their struggles without making them about you. You can stand in the presence of beauty without needing to possess it, just as you can witness cruelty without being consumed by it. This does not mean indifference. On the contrary, it means you are finally capable of true engagement, because you are no longer operating from fear. Fear clouds judgment, poisons compassion, distorts perception. Clarity allows you to act from reason, not panic, to extend kindness without being exploited, to defend boundaries without collapsing into rage. Seneca often warned that life is not short, but that we make it so by wasting it on what is not ours to control. When your mind is ruled by the endless need to be chosen, admired, or vindicated, entire years are lost in the pursuit of illusions. But when clarity becomes your constant state, time expands. Every moment becomes usable, because no moment is spent in needless war with reality. And perhaps here is the deepest shift: the realization that freedom is not a grand event, but a quiet accumulation of choices. Each time you refuse to be baited into needless conflict, each time you release a resentment before it calcifies, each time you choose dignity over desperation, freedom deepens. It is not dramatic. No one may notice. There will be no applause. But inside, something profound takes root. The unassailable knowledge that you belong to yourself. And once you belong to yourself, you can walk through the world without fear of losing anything essential. In that state, life ceases to be a contest for validation and becomes an arena for living fully. You can embrace joy without clinging to it, face loss without breaking under it, and meet the unknown without bargaining for guarantees. When the unknown arrives, as it always does, the unprepared mind scrambles for footholds. It clings to plans, demands explanations, begs for certainty where none can be found. But the prepared mind, the Stoic mind, does not panic. It understands that uncertainty is not an intruder, but a native element of existence. To live is to walk through fog. Seneca would say that the wise person learns not to banish the fog, but to navigate it without losing their way. This is not the shallow optimism of pretending all will be well, nor the brittle cynicism of expecting only harm. It is the steady realism of meeting what comes as it is. No more, no less. In modern psychological language, it is radical acceptance, but with a purpose beyond comfort. To free the mind for action, where action is possible, and peace, where it is not. The shadow, however, resists this peace. It prefers the drama of imagining outcomes, the seduction of rehearsing disasters. It feeds on the illusion that anxiety is preparation. Jung warned of this. The shadow thrives in avoidance and projection, turning the mind against itself. The Stoics warned of it too, though in different terms. They called it the tyranny of passions, the surrender of the soul to forces that do not serve its nature. To live in clarity is to break that tyranny daily. It is to look at fear and see its true size, stripped of exaggeration. It is to see that most of what you call rejection is not rejection at all, but redirection. It is to realize that insult, when examined closely, wounds only if it strikes where your own self-doubt already festers. Here lies one of Seneca's sharpest truths. No one can truly offend you unless you have first granted them power over your worth. This truth is liberating, but also sobering. It leaves no one else to blame. You become the custodian of your own dignity, and with that comes the relentless responsibility of guarding it. Yet this responsibility is not a burden. It is a privilege. To hold your dignity intact is to remain uncorrupted by the whims of others. Over time, this vigilance reshapes the nervous system itself. Modern trauma research shows that safety is not found in the absence of threat, but in the presence of agency. The Stoic, in cultivating clarity, builds this agency into every fiber of their being. You may still feel the surge of anger, the pang of loss, the sting of envy, but they no longer dictate your movements. They arrive, they are acknowledged, they depart. You remain. And in remaining, something remarkable happens. The world loses its power to seduce you with shallow victories. You no longer crave to win at the cost of your integrity, nor to be right at the cost of your peace. You begin to measure success, not by applause, but by the stillness with which you can lay your head at night. Others will notice this, though they may not understand it. They will see the way you refuse to be drawn into battles that are not yours, the way you hold your ground without aggression, the way you can say no without explanation. Some will call it detachment. Others will call it arrogance. But those who have glimpsed their own clarity will recognize it instantly, the unmistakable energy of someone who belongs wholly to themselves. This belonging transforms how you give yourself to others. You are no longer driven by the hidden bargain of, I will give, so you will stay. You give because you choose to, because generosity is part of your nature, not a strategy for security. And when you choose not to give, it is with the same clarity, not from bitterness, but from the wisdom that your energy is not infinite and that not every hand extended is meant to be filled. In the end, this is the quiet triumph of Stoic living, to move through a world that cannot be controlled without being controlled by it, to feel everything, but to be owned by nothing, to love without clinging, to lose without collapsing, to face the unknown without bargaining for safety. And as the ancients knew, it is only from this place of inner steadiness that one can meet life fully, without armor, yet never unprotected. Eventually, there comes a reckoning, not the loud public kind that demands witnesses, but the private kind that only the soul can hear. It is the moment you realize that everything you have been chasing, the approval, the recognition, the vindication, was never the prize. It was only the mirage that kept you running. Seneca warned of this endless chase, calling it the tragedy of the restless mind. The restless mind cannot sit in stillness, because stillness reveals the hollowness of its pursuits. It keeps running toward what it believes will complete it. Yet every summit reached reveals another horizon. In modern terms, this is the hedonic treadmill. But the Stoics did not merely diagnose the condition. They prescribed the cure, to step off the treadmill entirely. To step off is to confront a strange kind of silence. The absence of striving can feel at first like loss. Who are you without the chase? Without the need to be seen as worthy, clever, desired? Jung would say, this is the death of the false self, the constructed persona built to please the collective, and like any death, it can feel like annihilation. But in that space, something authentic stirs. The authentic self does not barter for love or recognition. It stands quietly, aware of its own worth without comparison. It is not concerned with being the most or the best, only with being true. And this truth is not static. It deepens with each act of alignment between thought, word, and deed. The Stoics called this living in accordance with virtue. Psychology calls it congruence. Whatever the name, it is the same rare state, no fracture between who you are and how you live. From this place, you begin to see how much of your life was dictated by fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being wrong, fear of being insignificant. And with that seeing comes liberation, for fear loses its grip when it is exposed to light. The shadows shrink, not because the threats were never real, but because your capacity to meet them has grown. This is where the modern and ancient meet most beautifully, in the recognition that resilience is not built in the absence of difficulty, but in its embrace. Seneca wrote that the good person dyes events with their own color, meaning they bring their nature to bear on circumstances rather than letting circumstances paint their soul. Jung might call this individuation, becoming so whole that the external world can no longer dictate your inner one. And so you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What will I make of this?" The question shifts the axis of your life. No longer a victim of fortune's storms, you become a navigator, steering by the compass of your values. The winds may be violent, but they do not own your course. This does not mean life becomes easy. You will still lose people you love. You will still face betrayals, setbacks, and nights heavy with uncertainty. But you will meet them differently, without the added suffering of believing they diminish you. Grief will be grief, not a verdict. Failure will be failure, not an identity. You will learn to let the waves break over you without drowning. Others may still mistake this for coldness, because they have only known a love that clings, a strength that shouts, a peace that avoids discomfort. They may not understand the depth of a heart that can let go without bitterness, or the strength of a soul that needs no spectacle to prove it is unshaken. But understanding from others is no longer your currency. You are paid in a different coin now, the unbroken alignment between who you are and how you live. And in the quiet of that alignment, you will feel something you once thought belonged only to those who had everything they wanted, a deep, steady joy. Not the fleeting rush of achievement, not the trembling relief of validation, but the joy of knowing that nothing essential can be taken from you.